Alright, so this is going to be a little helper to get you going on working with the JavaScript array files that have been created and posted up on Moodle. So the first thing you're going to want to do is locate that spot on Moodle, download the file, and then find it inside your downloads folder. Do notice that it is a 7z file, which means that it's currently compressed. So in order to use the files inside, you need to right click on it, choose 7-zip, and then extract somewhere where you can have access to them. Okay, so make sure you do that first. Once you're done, you'll notice that it then puts it into a folder like jsArray subfiles. And I'm just going to walk you through basically what's inside. The two files you're going to see are a code file and the worksheet itself. So I'm going to start with the worksheet and then come back to how we're going to use the code for the second part of this worksheet. So as we've had for many of our previous worksheets, there's a spot for you to put your name and date. And then notice there are still a few questions that have the gray box, and that would indicate that you should go to W3 Schools to locate the answer and then type up what you found in that spot there. If it doesn't have a gray box, however, then you've got to do some thinking and application of the material about arrays that you've covered so far in class. And feel free to, again, if you need to, do some Googling, because the idea is to really expand what you can do with arrays. So the first part of the worksheet is pretty straightforward, has some questions for you to do. This one is similar to when we had to create some variables. And again, remember, it's picky, so pay attention to all the details when you're putting in your correct answer here. These are all pretty straightforward as far as some other details we've covered about arrays so far. Number 8 is getting into if we had something for cards and we were trying to make a new array called card suits, then how would we go about doing that? So check out some things as far as what W3 Schools has shown for creating arrays, and then make that set up over here. Okay. Number 9 is referring to the thing you just created in 8, and then show a way of having it show all the values. And then we've just been talking about using a loop with this, so that's what number 10 is talking about down here. Okay. When you're finished with 1 through 10, as usual, there are some things to add on to your Google Doc on programming. Please label this section arrays number 1, and then look up some details or find details through discussion with your partners, and then jot those down into your JS programming sheet. Okay, so that's it for the first part of the worksheet. We'll be right back to talk about the next part of the same file. So after having completed the worksheet number 1 at the top here, 1 through 10, and the 2 questions down below in your Google Doc, you'll notice that if you scroll down, there are some pictures from the code that you're going to be using. So what I've tried to do is pull this out to help you understand the different big sections of the code that I've created that you're going to be modifying and then running to get answers to the second part of the worksheet. So if you notice the variable section, it's got an array created and some details inside here. There's also a function called showArrayList. There's some details in here that could prove very useful not only for this code, but for using with your movies code, where you're going to be displaying things out for a user to see details about your movie later on. And then last but not least, there's a main section, and notice these guys will run immediately when you run the code, so unless you comment them out. So the first one is going to do an alert for the array, and then the very next thing that will happen is calling that function called showArrayList. So this page is really for reference purposes for yourself. You may print this out if you want to kind of remind yourself, but you will have access to the code in order to do the next part of the worksheet. Okay, so you have this code, but this is just kind of a quick reference for some of those details if you want to have them. Feel free to keep that on your screen or print out a copy of this if you'd like. Okay, so moving down on that same document, then, this is all in the same jsArray part 1 worksheet. This also has the part 2 at the bottom. Okay, so if you notice, now this is asking you questions specifically about that file. So in order to do this, we really need to be looking at this code. So remember when you extracted the assignment from Moodle that you downloaded, there were two things inside. There was jsArray's part 1 worksheet, and then there was also this code. All right, so once this had been extracted just like the worksheet, remember to open it. You could just right click on it and edit with Notepad++. Okay, so I had that open already. Let me go ahead and pop that up for you. Okay, so right here is the code. Notice I've got it set up just like before, so you should be able to put your name in here when you're working on this. And then the things that you just saw on the middle part of the worksheet were the variable section, and here, sure enough, is the array. Here's the function, and here's the main section. So this is a different kind of setup for you in that now there are some questions built right into this document. So if you notice, line 39 is saying, explain what this line does for question number 2. So what that would mean is you would go back to the Word document and say, oh, okay, right in the code, I'm supposed to explain what that line 39 is doing over here. Okay, so it's going to be kind of a going back and forth between actual code and the worksheet. So you'll want to find where the questions are noted inside of your JavaScript file, and then answer the questions on the worksheet itself. All right, so there's them for question 3, here's for question 4, question 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so what you're going to be doing for all of those is looking back at what the code was indicating, and then recording your answers on the right hand side like usual. Notice there was nothing specifically pointed out for number 6, so it's really talking about right after we finish number 5, how many elements does the array have at this point. So they do go all in order, but you'll have to make sure that you're following the directions on this side and adjusting the code as needed to come up with your answers on this side. All right, that should help you get going on the worksheet, and then make sure you're paying attention to the due dates and when you need to have things printed and uploaded to Moodle. All right, good luck. So one final thing to be paying attention to is the bottom section indicating that if you need some more space to put them on the back. Since you guys are going to be using the electronic version of the file, of course you can change your font size. You can adjust the size for these guys over here before you print. The goal, of course, is to be using just as much paper as you have to, but no more. So hopefully the first worksheet and the second worksheet, those 2 pages without printing the middle page, would mean that you'd end up turning in 2 different pieces of paper. Okay, and then the very last thing to point out is that the goal here really is to practice using arrays and some of the methods and properties that go along with them. So don't just focus on getting an answer to put in over here. Instead, really think about what's working, what the different things are doing. Tweak the code a little bit to make sure you're understanding. As I indicated earlier, there are some pieces in the sample code I've provided here that could help you also with the movies code. So remember to then, when you're all done, to go back to your Google Doc on JS programming and add in insights about arrays based on your actual code work here. All right, that should be a wrap. Happy coding.